Hello, fellow Dhamma practitioners. Today I will talk about preparing for our last death, which will end the cycle of rebirth and the round of existence, or samsara. It is the last passing away which ends the cycle of rebirth and the round of existence, or samsara. To be ready in preparation for death before actually dying, there are several Dhamma factors we have to focus on. 1. There are two kinds of practicing: concentration development, samatha, and insight meditation, Vipassana. 2. We must have right understanding of the right practice and know how to practice based only on the Buddha's guidelines, since the Buddha was the great prophet who was the supreme knower of the world and the laws of nature. 3. Buddha discovered that the cause of rebirth was the mind, and specifically the state of the last mind of the most recent life, which is the death mind. He saw that the last thought, the last state of mind at the last moment of life, was based on ignorance because of attachment. Consciousness needs the mind or thoughts to arise, and thoughts need consciousness. They depend on each other. When the last mind, or death mind, is attached to the last thought of the most recent life, it becomes the birth mind of the next life, the rebirth mind. 4. This leads to rebirth in the various states of existence, in wombs, eggs, mud, as creatures which are spontaneously born, or as human beings born in the womb with the 5 aggregates. To be reborn as a human being, male or female, with certain characteristics and appearance, skin color, social status, wealth or poverty, is the result of the last thought of the past life, death mind, and past deeds, karma, which both lead to rebirth. To be reborn in any of the 31 realms of existence is the result of fully completed past deeds, at the physical, verbal and mental level, which lead to the formation of the last state of consciousness, or death mind. Those deeds that are only mental, verbal, or physical, not all three, result in the formation of the mind which we will have from the moment of our birth in the new life until our death in that life. This is the mind that receives the results or effects of the deeds which were not fully completed in past lives through the 5 physical sense doors, contacts at the 5 sense doors, eyes/seeing, ears/hearing, nose/smelling, tongue/tasting, and body/touching. Our way of life, the way we face situations, meet certain kinds of people, and things that generally happen in our lives are all the result of our past deeds, karma. We are the heir of our karma. Karma or action is the origin of rebirth, heritage and refuge, when the karma is good. If there is no Buddha Dhamma when and where we are born and we never hear about his teachings and practices, we'll never have the opportunity to follow the Noble Eightfold Path and escape from suffering. The people who have never listened to or do not understand the Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha, and who don't practice at all, tend to engage only in helping others and making donations. Otherwise they are attached to the material world because they are happy as such. They don't know that helping others and making donations with ignorance and desire, without mindfulness and wisdom, is dangerous, so they are happy with their good deeds and grasp and become attached to them. Are these actions good? Yes, but they are born of ignorance because they lead us to be reborn. Virtuous conduct consists of good deeds that lead us to be born to receive the result of that good deed. The problem is whenever we are reborn, we have to face suffering, sadness, lamentation, physical and mental discomfort, resentment, unpleasant people and situations, separation from beloved objects and people, disappointment, dissatisfaction, and, eventually, old age, sickness and death. No matter what world you're born into, old age, sickness and death are inevitable. Even if we're reborn in heaven and receive the results of good deeds, once our time in heaven is up, we will die and be reborn in one of the 4 lower worlds, lower states of existence or woeful realms, where we will receive the effects of our bad deeds. We will take birth in the four lower worlds for a very long time until the effects of our bad deeds are finally consumed. From the lower worlds, we may be reborn as human beings with handicaps, retarded, insane, dumb, deaf, or blind. If we have a lot of karma from bad deeds from being in the lower worlds for a very long time, we will take on the habits of the creatures of those lower worlds. We may be reborn in a poor family, and, in order to earn a living, to live and survive, we may become involved in and perform bad deeds repeatedly. Then we will be reborn in the woeful realms again and again. If we perform some good deeds, we may be reborn into a good family and have the chance to engage in good deeds, and as a result we may be reborn in a good realm or in heaven. We may be reborn as a human being and have the chance to do good deeds. We may even have the chance to practice meditation and may reach deep absorbed concentration or jhana, the state of serene contemplation or trance. That will lead us to be reborn in the upper Brahma realms, where divine beings of the form sphere or the formless sphere reside. No matter what good deeds we do, we are still in the cycle of rebirth in the 31 realms of existence as long as we are ignorant, attached to wrong views, and are defiled by greed, anger, and delusion. Is concentration practice to reach the absorption concentration state, or jhana, good? Yes, it is. It is even better than making merit because it is the practice of mental development. However, if it is done without knowing the real purpose or real benefit, then it is practicing out of craving, desire, and clinging. It is still ignorance, because it leads to rebirth in the Brahma realm. The highest stage of deep absorption concentration or jhana is just the state of formless Brahma. Attaining the ability to be in the formless sphere takes an extremely long time, and we still have to return to the endless cycle of rebirth, old age, and death in the four lower spheres or woeful realms. To be born as a human being is extremely difficult, and being born when Buddhism is practiced is even much more difficult. We may even be under the shelter of Buddhism or in a region where Buddhism is alive and well, but if you don't have the right understanding of the principles of Buddha Dhamma or right faith to engage in practicing to escape the cycle of suffering, you are still in the endless round of rebirth, old age, sickness, and death. The essence of Buddhism is not simply doing good deeds or helping others. The practices of maintaining morality and performing good deeds exist even without Buddhism. But the practices of training the mind to attain right mindfulness, right concentration, and analytical reflection, and seeing the common characteristics of all things, the three marks of existence, are the practices of Buddha Dhamma that appear only in the time of Buddhism. This great practice liberates us from the cycles of suffering, the round of existence or samsara. We are fortunate to be born in an era when Buddha's teaching, the Dhamma, is alive and well. From Buddha's teaching we learn which is the right way and which is not, and about the law of karma, action, and the consequences of action. By training our mind to be wise and to see all natural phenomena as they truly are, we will be able to gradually eradicate the causes of rebirth until the practice results in enlightenment, the abandonment of defilements, and the cessation of suffering. This is the training to prepare for our actual death before it occurs, in which we train the knower mind to separate mental from physical phenomena and practice Vipassana meditation. Is it good to contemplate our death? It is, because it calms the mind and makes it free from defilement and unwholesomeness. But contemplation of death is just another means of concentration. It is still recollecting and has not reached the stage of insight meditation yet. This practice simply prevents us from committing unwholesome acts, because we are afraid of the consequences of our bad deeds. When the contemplation of death calms the mind, it becomes peaceful, and we should take advantage of that condition to continue training the mind to have right mindfulness and right concentration.
We develop the mind to practice the four foundations of mindfulness. Beginning by choosing one of the foundations: body, feeling, mind, thoughts, or mind object, as the base for contemplation, we set the mind at the base, being mindful in the present moment and aware of the mind's activities. Know when it strays, is restless, or overfocuses. Adjust the mind to be at peace with wholesomeness and virtue. The mind becomes a knower mind, awakened and buoyant in the midst of restlessness, straying, drifting, sinking into emotion, over-focusing and hindrances. The 5 hindrances of our practice are: 1. Sensual desire. 2. Ill will. 3. Sloth and torpor. 4. Restlessness and anxiety. 5. Doubt. When the hindrances arise, ignorance controls the mind to stray and become immersed in thoughts and emotions. But the mind wants the practice to be good, so it may overfocus at the base until it becomes stiff and inflexible. In both cases, the mind cannot be in the middle way, but this wrong mind can be useful for developing the right knower mind. Whenever the hindrances arise, be aware of the condition of the mind, whether it goes astray and follows the thoughts or controls or overfocuses. Be aware of its condition and bring it back to the base persistently. The base is one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness that we use as a tactic to train the mind to be awakened, not just to keep the mind at the base all the time. To have the mind at the base all the time, we have to control or force the mind so much that it becomes stressed, unable to become a knower mind and unable to reach the middle way. But if the mind is lazy, unguarded, or unaware, it will stray and become immersed in thoughts or emotions. In this condition, the knower mind also cannot arise. Therefore we have to cultivate effort, patience, truthfulness, and persistent practice. Each time we get lost in thoughts or overfocus, be aware of the conditions and return to the base. The knower mind arises at this moment and it will accumulate in the subconscious. We should relax and practice without desire for good results or calmness, with no aversion to unfavorable phenomena or conditions, but with awareness, seeing things just as they truly are at the present moment. The practices of samatha, concentration, and vipassana, or insight meditation, are each different. Samatha is the meditation practice that leads to good concentration, calmness and tranquility, training the knower mind to practice vipassana meditation. Vipassana is the meditation practice of objectively observing sensations, thoughts and emotions, physical and mental phenomena just as they really are without bias or aversion. This practice develops right mindfulness and right concentration and cultivates wisdom to attain equanimity, and eventually can lead to the cessation of suffering and the cycle of samsara. To cultivate wisdom, we first need to train the mind to be a knower mind, which is the consequence of practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The knower mind is able to separate itself from mental and physical phenomena and can cause wisdom to arise. We cultivate vipassana or wisdom to see the 3 marks of existence, of mental and physical phenomena, until the mind clearly understands and accepts their true nature, and attains equanimity, eventually leading us to selflessness. We can practice by chanting or by sitting or walking meditation with the 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of physical and mental states in the present moment. Whether the mind goes astray or overfocuses, just know when it does. When we are aware and know the mind state, a new mind will arise with mindfulness and clear comprehension to lead the mind back to the base and the present moment. Clear comprehension controls the mind, and mindfulness to be in the present moment. Just relax and be aware at the base, without straying or over-focusing to control the mind to be at the base. Repeatedly being aware of the mind straying and bringing it back to the base causes mindfulness and clear comprehension to arise with the mind at the base. Then we recognize this repetition and it becomes persistent, stronger and concentrated. Strong and concentrated perception causes mindfulness to become automatic, and when the mind recognizes sense objects it won't stray or overfocus. It will be stable and firm at the base, a knower mind, objectively observing and seeing the contact and reaction as they really are, and the knower mind sees the separation between mental and physical phenomena. This is the state of right concentration, knower mind or characteristic examining jhana. Then the knower mind impartially and objectively observes mental and physical phenomena that fall under the rule of the three marks of existence and leads the mind to equanimity. The separation of form and name, physical and mental phenomena, can be seen in 6 domains or aspects. 1. The 5 aggregates. 2. The 18 elements. 3. The 12 sense spheres, 6 internal and 6 external. 4. The 22 faculties. 5. The 12 links of the chain of dependent origination. 6. The 4 noble truths. Knowing or seeing the separation of form and name can be in any one of these aspects, depending on the individual. Basically, just see the body as one part and thought as another part, with the knower mind about 20% at the base. If we want to contemplate the body, we can use breathing, the 5 physical sense doors, eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body, or bodily movements, walking, standing, sitting, reclining, talking, and drinking. On the other hand, if we want to observe the mind, we could use the mental aggregates, feeling or sensation, perception and consciousness. When the knower mind is stable at the base, we will see the actual state of the mind, when, how and where feelings or thoughts arise. The knower mind will be aware and see the process of thought, and with right mindfulness, right concentration and cultivated wisdom we will know the cycles, mechanisms and working processes of mind and understand the causes and effects of mental activities, the chain of dependent origination. Therefore the knower mind is able to objectively observe the thought process, moment to moment, and know when and where a thought arises and when and where that thought passes away. With right mindfulness at the base in the present moment, we will be immediately aware whenever and wherever the thought process begins and ends. Thus with the last mind of this life, with perfect equanimity we are able to stop rebirth. But if we don't know how the mind works, the process of thought, the separation between body and mind, the distinction between the knower mind and thought, we will not have the necessary tools for practice, which we need to lead us out of suffering. The suffering that happens to us is not the problem is that we don't have right mindfulness and right concentration. The mind goes astray and becomes immersed in suffering and problems. So there is self, the sense of me or mine, in those feelings and problems. When there is self in the object of consciousness, when we think it is us or ours, we grasp and attach to that object of consciousness or sense object. Then we try to control the impermanence of the object, desiring it to be permanent. We want to control things that are impermanent, transient, suffering, oppressive, and distressing to be as we like. Consequently, we are suffering because we don't know the nature of matter and mind, or form and name. We are suffering because we do not have right understanding of the true nature of all things, which is the 3 marks of existence, impermanence, suffering and no self. Therefore, we have to learn and practice with wisdom, applying the principles that Buddha taught. If we want to be prepared for death, we need to understand the thought process, the working process of our mind. We need to develop right mindfulness and right concentration at the base and cultivate wisdom, a knower mind, and we will eventually learn that the knower mind is also under the law of nature, the 3 marks of existence. This is a brief summary of the middle way.
If you want to be prepared for death, especially those who are getting older or are suffering or distressed and want to be free from suffering in the present and future. You have to cultivate right understanding and a strong and powerful mind, firm at the base, knower mind, and able to deal with suffering, defilement, and the 5 hindrances. When we have mindfulness and a knower mind, or base, we can separate form and name. In separating form and name, we need to know where the mind process begins and see the process of thought. There are 2 ways the mind process begins. The first is through the 5 physical sense doors: form, eyes/seeing, ears/hearing, nose/smelling, tongue/tasting, and body/touching. These contacts at the 5 physical sense doors are the result of our past deeds, accumulated through innumerable lives. Those past deeds, or karma, have been accumulated in the subconscious, waiting for a suitable time to deliver the consequences of the previous actions, or karma, to the 5 physical sense doors at the next mind moment in this life or the last mind of this life, which creates the rebirth mind for the next life. From contact at the 5 physical sense doors, the effects proceed to the mind doors and become the 3 mental aggregates: feeling, perception, and mental formation. These states of mind, feelings, and thoughts at the 5 physical sense doors affect the chain of dependent origination, and the feelings of like and dislike, satisfaction and dissatisfaction arise along with craving or desire. The second way the mind process begins is directly from the mind. Thoughts just pop up, just arise. These are the 3 mental aggregates. 1. Feelings, physical and mental pleasure/pain, happiness/sadness, and neutral feeling or equanimity. 2. Perception, mental grasp of objects, qualities, concepts, and memories of the past. 3. Mental formation, fabrication of thoughts, thinking, mental proliferation, wholesome and unwholesome, sudden arising of feelings, such as being homesick or bored, getting drowsy, feeling pain in the legs or elsewhere, and thoughts of the future, both wholesome and unwholesome. When such thoughts and feelings arise, if you're not mindful, not aware of the thoughts and feelings as they arise, your mind will stray, follow and grasp them as self, my thoughts or feelings. Once attachment occurs, there is self. We need to train our mind to be quick and be instantly aware of mental and physical phenomena, to be the seer and knower. The cultivated mind, the knower mind, will realize that the contacts that occur at the 5 sense doors are not by chance, but are the results of past causes, past factors, or karma. Contact gives rise to the reactions of feelings of pleasure and pain, and craving, sensual craving, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. When we are aware of the contact, we are separating the knower mind from the body and thought, form and name, and the mind process advances to the state of insight meditation. With right mindfulness and right concentration, the knower mind objectively observes thought and feelings, separating the knower mind from the thought and feeling. Therefore, we see that the body is one part, the thought is another part, and the knower mind is separate from both. Then in that moment there is no one, no I, no me, no person, no creature, no self, but only natural phenomenon. At this stage, the mind advances to the highest mind object, the ultimate truth, consisting of the knower mind, the 3 mental aggregates, form, and enlightenment, or nibbana. Mind is the knower, which is the observer that sees things the way they really are. The 3 mental aggregates are thoughts and feelings, and form is the body, the 5 physical sense doors and body postures. Then the knower mind objectively observes the 3 marks of existence, and attains the state of cessation of suffering. Cessation of suffering or enlightenment is the state of seeing the 3 marks of existence. We attain this state bit by bit, glimpsing it, until we enter the stages of enlightenment and abandon the defilements, leading to the breaking of the chain of dependent origination. This is the extinction or cessation of suffering. Therefore, We have to know that whenever the mind process starts at the 5 physical sense doors, eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body, and causes thoughts to arise. The thinking mind, the 3 aggregates of feeling, perception and mental formation, is called the state of existence, thinking of happiness, suffering, feelings, perceptions, pleasure and pain, good and bad memories, wholesomeness and unwholesomeness, and thinking of the future. These are the 3 mental aggregates, the state of existence, which can be positive or negative. There are 2 aspects of the state of existence. 1. When we are alive, whenever there is contact, there will be feeling. The mind thinks, and, if we are not mindful, the mind gets lost in the thought and grasps it. The thought becomes the source of pleasure or pain, of craving, desire, contentment or discontent, liking or disliking. The thought is the starting point for attachment and clinging, and it causes the mind to perform actions through body, speech and thought. The results of the actions are stored and accumulated in the subconscious, waiting to be passed on to the next mind or the conscious mind of the next life. This is called the karma process, the active process of becoming that results in rebirth in any of the 31 realms of existence according to past deeds. 2. The other aspect of becoming is our mental state or condition at the moment we are dying. This is the state of existence that leads to the last state of mind, of consciousness at the point of death and rebirth, and this last thought connects to the rebirth mind of the next life. The mind process of the last state of consciousness starts with contact with the body, then affects the mind. When the mind attaches to the last mind of this life, it becomes the rebirth mind of becoming, that causes rebirth in one of the 31 planes of existence, receiving the results of karma from the past and still in the cycle of suffering. At the moment of dying, the body feels the pain and the suffering that occur while the 4 elements are breaking down. The earth/solidity, water/liquid, fire/heat and air/wind elements of the body cannot function properly. The whole body becomes weak. No part of the body, no organ can perform properly. If we have never trained our mind, have not cultivated a strong mind to have right mindfulness, right concentration, and wisdom, and have not built up the 10 perfections to be able to tolerate difficulties, pain and frustration, will experience extreme suffering. One may also fall into mental distress or agitation about family or other concerns. For example, when someone is dying, their children or grandchildren may be near, causing them anxiety and their thoughts attached to that feeling, making them feel unhappy and distressed. Then the last state of consciousness will be an unwholesome thought that leads to the lower realms. Or those who practice deep concentration and were in deep concentration as the last deed at the final moment of life, they will be reborn in one of the Brahma realms, where the divine beings of the 16 form spheres and 4 formless spheres reside. But those who are lost in thoughts of past deeds, kama and sensuality, may be reborn in the sensuous planes, heavenly planes, human realm or lower worlds, depending on their wholesome or unwholesome acts in the past. When we are seriously ill and the mind is not of good quality, we will become immersed in our illness and experience intense suffering. The body is the source of suffering, and after birth it is subject to deterioration, sickness, aging and death. Therefore, if we are determined to walk the path to the liberation from suffering, we need to build up the perfections and train and develop a strong, powerful mind, to be accustomed to being with discomfort and pain. We need to cultivate right mindfulness, right concentration and wisdom to be able to see the reality of our feelings, not to overcome the feelings, but to be able to see how the mind reacts to them. Practice more and more, persistently and frequently until the knower mind sees the 3 marks of existence, realizes equanimity, craving or desire, and the feelings of like and dislike are eradicated. When you feel intense pain, the knower mind will arise and separate the body from thoughts so it does not suffer, and wisdom will cause the mind to become equanimous and able to stay with the pain. We need to practice diligently and persistently until we can do this. The knower mind, the cultivated mind, objectively observes the true nature of all things, the three marks of existence, impermanence, suffering, and no self, with wisdom. All things arise, exist for a time and pass away. By seeing the impermanence, suffering, and no self of thought, we train the mind to become equanimous toward the five aggregates. As a result, the thought is not the site or source of feeling, craving, or attachment anymore, is not the source of the states of existence that lead to physical, verbal, and mental actions, is not the source of rebirth, and is not the state or the condition where one has to be reborn to receive the results of those actions in the future. Since we know the moments before death are harsh and difficult, and we realize that the last act in the last state of mind leads us to the next life, we need to persistently train our mind to be present, mindful, awake, and firmly focused. The mind becomes the knower mind and the seer mind, and it is aware of all the sensations and feelings, such as pain, grief, anger, and sadness, and these sensations and feelings show us the reality of the three marks of existence of the body and mind. We need to cultivate right mindfulness, right concentration, and wisdom to be able to correctly perceive physical and mental conditions just as they really are. We do not try to eliminate unpleasant sensations, but try to be able to have mindfulness and wisdom while experiencing unpleasant feelings. We cannot prevent sickness or death, but we can train the mind to be calm and strong at a time of crisis. With wisdom, we can cultivate the 10 perfections, the perfections of patience, effort, and truthfulness, and we will be able to stay calm in the midst of suffering. The knower mind is able to separate mind and mental factors from the body and see the body as one part and mind as another. When the mind sees this separation more often, it will realize that the body is not ours. Then we won't be oppressed by the suffering and harsh and uncomfortable sensations of the body. When we observe thoughts or mental factors more often, we see them arising and passing away and see the impermanence, suffering, and no self of thought. When we continue observing these phenomena, we will see the separation between the seer and the object seen, between the knower and the known. Then the mind will realize that the thoughts are just mental aggregates, arising and passing away, and not ours, not me and no mine, and that the suffering caused by thoughts is also not ours. With this wisdom, the mind sees that everything, body and mind, form and name, has the same qualities and is the same, nothing but the three marks of existence, impermanence, suffering, and no self. Then the mind becomes equanimous and attains the knowledge of equanimity regarding all five aggregates. Equanimity is one of the factors which causes enlightenment to arise. This is noble eightfold path. The human body consists of 4 elements: earth, solid, water, liquid, wind, air, and fire, heat or radiation. After death, these elements return to nature. No one can carry the body to the next life. No one can take his or her property, belongings, and money with them, and these possessions will become the property of others. Nothing really belongs to us. We may give our treasures to our children or grandchildren, or we can donate to charities and help the needy, and the effects of these good deeds will follow us to the next life. Or even better, if we simply give for the sake of giving, out of kindness, out of generosity, not expecting anything in return, our stinginess and selfishness will be reduced. These good acts will lighten our mind and make it peaceful, happy, and filled with joy. This is part of cultivating the perfection of generosity, the perfection of giving. We can use giving, making donations, and making merit as the foundation of cultivating wisdom, of practicing Vipassana or insight meditation to purify our mind. After we die, nothing belongs to us except the mind with the wholesome qualities derived from giving, making merit, and performing good deeds. Only the results of our acts, good or bad, will follow us to the next life. The last state of mind, the last thought before death, is the seed, the linkage to rebirth in the next life. Therefore, in preparing for death, we need to diligently and frequently observe the body and mind and practice the four foundations of mindfulness until we attain right concentration and the mind becomes a knower mind and seer, not over-focusing or going astray. We need to observe the mind process, the thought process, in the present moment until we clearly understand the cause and effect of the arising of the body and mind.
With the knower mind or right concentration, we can objectively observe feelings and thoughts, whether pain, irritation, anxiety, sadness, or thoughts of happiness or despair, as they arise. Then the knower mind will be able to separate the mind from the body with wisdom. With right mindfulness, right concentration, and wisdom, when pain or unpleasant feelings arise, we are able to instantly be aware of that condition and deal with our craving, attachment and behavior. Once we are aware of the condition, the mind separates from the thought and sees the thought arising and passing away, and the mind has no craving and is not attached to the mental state. The thought is no longer the anchor for the mind. With right mindfulness, clear comprehension, and wisdom, the mind becomes independent, free and unattached, causing the thought or mental state to pass away. When the mental state disappears, the deed, the defiled act, cannot take place. As a result, the mind is calmer and more peaceful and composed, and we are able to maintain our morality and precepts with wisdom. This state of mind is enormously beneficial, and in order to attain it we need to practice repeatedly, diligently and persistently. As a result, we will be instantly aware of any physical and mental phenomenon when it arises. No matter if it is negative or positive, a wholesome or unwholesome feeling, sensation, or thought, just observe and see the three marks of existence of the physical and mental phenomena. Observe and see things just the way they are, without bias or distortion. Everything, without exception, is subject to impermanence, suffering, and no self, arising, existing for a time and passing away, uncontrollable. Then the mind will become equanimous, unattached to happiness or unhappiness, free from defilement, craving, grasping and attachment. We gain in wisdom and gradually eliminate self and ego, and attachment to the state of existence or three mental aggregates, one by one, step by step. We are liberated every time wisdom sees the three marks of existence and the defilements and desire arising and passing away. The attachment to self is gradually lessened and defilements are eliminated. We can see how cultivated our mind is by noticing if defilements have decreased. Everyone wants to be happy. The happiness of most people depends on the aggregate of feeling or sensation and on the aggregate of form, sight, sound, taste, smell and contact. Our happiness may be founded on wealth, good health, having a good family, good friends, a nice house, car, job and belongings, but this happiness is always at risk because it depends on things that are impermanent and subject to change. But if our happiness is based on our persistent practice and study of the Buddha's teaching, Dhamma, under the shelter of the Triple Gem, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, practicing to cultivate wisdom or Vipassana and seeing all things as they truly are, then we will have a purified, equanimous and peaceful mind. To attain this quality of mind, we need to diligently and persistently practice on our own to reach enlightenment and directly experience and realize the Dhamma, the law of nature, by ourselves. If our goal is to be liberated from the cycle of suffering and attain enlightenment or nibbana in this present life, but we weren't able to do so while we were young and healthy, we can still realize the goal in the last state of mind when we die. This is the complete extrication of all defilements and attachment at the moment of the attainment of nibbana, at the time of death. The final goal, the supreme goal of practicing the Dhamma of the Buddha is only to attain nibbana or the cessation of suffering. If we intend to reach the goal, morality, mind and wisdom must be purified, and we need to study to understand the principles of practicing, diligently working with persistent effort in formal practice, chanting, sitting and walking meditation, to develop a calm and strong mind that can deal with the defilements and problems of daily life. Without formal practice, the mind won't have enough strength and may go astray, become lost and immersed in the contact, thoughts and feelings.
To be liberated from suffering or to attain nibbana, we need to cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, training to purify the mind and awaken the knower mind, stable at the base. The knower mind objectively observes the cause and effect of the arising of form and name, physical and mental phenomena. This mind has wisdom and sees that they are all subject to arising, existing for a time and then passing away, and sees the three marks of existence, the common characteristics of all things. The knower mind causes wisdom to realize the true nature of the body and mind, have right understanding of the Four Noble Truths, and see and appreciate the teaching, or Dhamma, of the Buddha. The tasks to be completed are: 1. Develop right understanding of suffering. 2. Abandon and eradicate defilement, the cause of suffering. 3. Realize the cessation of suffering and develop the Noble Eightfold Path. Once all of the tasks are completed, the state of existence ends, the three mental aggregates disappears, birth and rebirth ends, and there is no longer any task to complete. This is the last birth. This death is the last death. This is a great achievement, the result of having the courage to walk the Noble Eightfold Path to the cessation of suffering, nibbana. This is the greatness of being born as a child and disciple of the Buddha, under the shelter of Buddhism. May you all advance more and more in Dhamma. Sadhu, 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 anumodana to each and every one.